Son, the Holy Spirit, one God, amen. We thank you, our Heavenly Father, for this opportunity to come together, Lord. We thank you for giving us coolness today, Lord, with the rain that's come and just cooling the temperatures, Lord. The heat was wonderful, but it's good to just enjoy a little bit of coolness at the same time, Lord. We thank you for providing for all of our needs, for being constantly involved in our lives, constantly seeking to communicate with us, Lord. And just ask, Lord, that through this discussion on communication, we would also be more attuned to our communication with you, Lord. Hear us as we pray thankfully, our Father, who art in heaven. Go ahead and get started. We're going to continue our series on Christian leadership. 3 weeks ago now, Makar did a talk on, that was a good one, everyone should remember that one. Integrity, excellent. Integrity is about honoring your word, right? That's the big takeaway that I got. It was great, honor your word. The second talk I wasn't here for was about interior or inner checks and balances. I think it was the idea of it, and what came out of it was that there's different, is there any way we can shrink this a little bit? Or does that have to be done from up there? Just a little. There were certain characteristics, that's it, all right, it's all good. Certain characteristics that I think when you look at yourself as a leader that you should be able to see, and so you want to check those things, okay? Last week we spoke about, what did we talk about last week? Vision. Vision, just to help you remember, you use your vision to do what? What do you use your vision for?
For leadership.
No. What do you use your vision for in real life? Like in your own personal human being? To see. Excellent. So your vision helps you see. Your vision helps you see who you are and where you're going. Okay? That's the easiest way to remember it. Okay? So that's what we talked about last week. I encourage you, after sharing my own vision statement with you, to sit down and start writing up your own vision statement. And 3 or 4 people actually contacted me during the week. One person put a lot of work into it, which was great. Emailed me long list of things about their vision. And I believe Maura actually has picked up the pieces and is working with her. And 2 other guys I'm working with right now. And God willing, in the next couple of weeks, we're going to help craft, at least direct them as they craft their own vision statement. Today, we're going to talk about what every person says is the most important subject, right? Everyone always says that their subject is the most important, okay? Well, I want to tell you that I think communication is one of the most important topics, skills in any area of life, whether you're a Christian or you're an atheist, whether you're an old person, young person, female or male, communication is key, okay? And this aspect of communication we want to talk about is going to be multifaceted today. I want you to imagine with me for a second. That's not the order they were supposed to go in, but that's okay. We are going to mix it up a little, all right? Shuffle the deck. So a father once said, I can't understand my kid. He just won't listen to me at all. What's the problem with this statement? All right, what's the issue that you see with this statement? Anyone? Huh? Yes. Understanding my kid? Okay. What else does someone see?
He is not listening.
All right. Who's not listening?
The kid.
The kid's not listening. Father's not listening. They're both not listening. Right? Nobody's listening. And no one's understanding anyone. And part of it is because there's no communication, or there's poor communication. And guys, this happens in our houses all the time. If you want to know the first place we're going to talk about, we need to look at, it's in our own relationships, in our own homes, in our friendships. Okay? Poor communication brings about frustration. We get frustrated when communication's messed up. Okay? When there's a miscommunication, think about it. One of the big ones, you get frustrated. You get irritated. You get hurt. When there's poor or miscommunications, people's feelings get hurt all the time. You find people can be crying because someone said something and it was miscommunicated. People get angry. People get very angry from miscommunication. People get confused. Okay, people get confused when things are miscommunicated. Miscommunication or poor or bad communication can bring about a lot of negative consequence. I want you to imagine with me for a moment, when you read this passage, Romans 10:17, if the gospel was not communicated to us in the methods, plural, that it was, what would have happened to the world? Jesus Christ, God incarnate, comes into the world to communicate with the world in his own flesh who he is and what we're supposed to be. And then he transmits that message to his apostles. It becomes living in them, and they go out to continue that. Now, let's say for a second, they were poor communicators. We're going to say for a second, Jesus was not. He's the Logos. He's the Word. He's communication in itself. Okay? But for a second, let's say the apostles, they were horrible communicators. What would have happened? Faith comes from hearing, and hearing through the word of Christ. What would have happened to us if communication was not an important aspect that was part of their own leadership as Christians, as apostles, bringing the message? A scholar on the subject of communication named Bernard Baruch says, the ability to express an idea is nearly as important as the idea itself. I want you to take that in for a second. The ability to express an idea is as important, or almost as important, as the idea itself. You know, in business, there have been a lot of great ideas, but what prevented them from being successful was what? No marketing strategy. They were unable to communicate this amazing idea. I serve on the board of a company. Okay? I've been on this board since before I was a priest. I'm now in an advisory role. It's a technology company. And this company actually has come up with some brilliant ideas. But the marketing strategy has stunk. And then 2 years after we came up with this idea, Google comes out with this same idea. Okay? The ability to express and communicate an idea is nearly as important as the idea itself. You can have all the ideas in the world. If you can't communicate that idea, if you can't communicate something, it doesn't mean a thing. And that's why communication is so important. For us, for our faith, communication is key. We communicate with Christ every time we take the Eucharist. We communicate with God every time we read the Bible. We communicate with Him every time we stand and pray. We communicate with Him when we love one another, when we share the gospel with each other. Faith comes from hearing. When you were 5 years old, this is what your brain looked like. Okay? The reddish color is called gray matter. Even though it's red, it's called gray matter. And then the further you go, you have less gray matter. Okay? We have some people that study pre-med. We're not going to get deep into it. Kiro's over there nodding his head like he knows what the heck I'm talking about. Everyone else is like, yeah. You know, it looks like your kids colored some pictures. You know, my kids are not that talented yet, but they'll get there, okay? But what happens is the older you get, the more you lose your gray matter. And gray matter is what allows you to learn certain things, okay? Just take it at that, okay? So what happens is, by the time you're 20, you should have learned a good amount of what you should and shouldn't do. You should know some certain skills, okay? But the problem is our brains have been rewired in such a way. I want you to think how communication itself has changed over the last decade. Some of you have only communicated in the era of cell phones, of texting. Like you sit here and text during a talk, okay? Your children will never live in an era where there wasn't Facebook. The way we communicate is radically different than a decade or 2 decades ago, okay? So we've been completely rewired, we've been retrained how to communicate, and not all of it is healthy. Our brains, when it comes to communication, looks like this. Okay? This is what a lot of you look like from the inside, okay? Not me, you. All right? I can see through. I've got my x-ray glasses, I can see. I see a few of you, your brains are even smaller than that when it comes to this issue of communication. But we're gonna work on that. That's why we're here today. Okay, we're here to talk about this and get better at this, all right? I was reading a study, and he was talking about how the rewiring, this guy from Temple University, was talking about how this whole rewiring process happened. And he said one of the things that we have to learn is certain life and social skills, and at the top of it was communication. Guys, it's key, it's huge. I want you to understand that this is not only an important thing for us as a community, but for you as an individual, as a person, as a Christian, to be an effective person in life. You need to be a better communicator. And we're going to talk about why and what that looks like. Certain objectives we're going to talk about today. Number one is we want to understand what is communication. What exactly is communication itself? What are some of the different types? And what is the actual process of communication? We're going to break it down. Okay? Number two is we want to talk about different ways that we communicate, different modes of communication. Number three is active listening. The idea of listening. Some of you are not listening right now. All right, we're going to talk about what you're doing, but it's not listening. All right? Number four is tips to improve these different communications. And the last one is cultural considerations when it comes to communication, which is key. What is communication? Someone define for me communication. What is it? Yes.
The ability to actively engage with a person or more than one person and achieve an understanding of what's happening.
Excellent. Very good. I like it. You get some Urban. That better be soda.
It is.
All right. All right. So that's good. Anyone else have a definition that they'd like to either add to or modify what Daniel said? What is communication? Yes, come in.
I think it's two-way bridge to bridge the meaning from one side to another, from one to bridge the conceptions or something in the
Ideas.
mind from one side to another,
Okay.
and vice versa.
Okay, excellent. Olivia, I want you to tell me what you heard Daniel say communication is.
He said the act of speaking with one person or more than one person and getting them to understand
Is that what you said?
Not exactly.
Not exactly. All right. Tell us again what you said.
The ability.
No, it's the ability to.
You're going to get another chance at this, all right? This is important.
The ability to actively interact with one or more people and to achieve an understanding of what's happening.
Excellent. What do you say?
The ability to, not to say verbatim.
Nope, just the idea.
Okay, the ability to interact with one or more people and achieve an understanding.
Excellent.
I think that was verbatim.
All right, good job. Peter, what did Kamel say?
The ability to get the conception from one person to another.
All right, that's about what you said, more or less? The idea? All right, let's look at what the definition that I found out. Communication is the art of transmitting information. And I underlined and bolded the word art. Because communication, guys, is an art. All right, it's an art. It's a beautiful thing. It can be perfected, it can be improved upon. All right, it's not a science, it's an art. What's going on back there? What are y'all communicating about back there, all right? So communication is the art, stay up here, of transmitting information. Kind of what was said back here, right? Ideas, attitudes from one person to another. It is the process of meaningful interaction between people or human beings, all right? It's meaningful, it's interaction, there's an exchange that's taking place, and I want you to remember, it is an art. It's a skill. It needs to be worked on. It needs to be perfected. It needs to be improved. In its essence, like we said, it occurs between people. There's an exchange that's happening. There's influence that's taking place, right? Sometimes you're communicating things with your parents. You're trying to influence them to let you go out, of course, for Friday night Bible study or other places, perhaps, all right? You want to influence your friends to go out. Rather than going to Rose's, you want to go to Applebee's. There's influence happening, right? There's not only an exchange, but influence is taking place. Emotions, you know, we talked about ideas, but emotions are also communicated, guys. All right? And there's an important aspect in communication. It's called believability. Believability. And this is a really important idea for you as communicators. For you to be a very successful communicator or a more successful communicator, you need to be more believable. Okay? You need to be more credible. And there's certain things we're going to say, if you do these things, it'll help you to be more believable. And what happens when a person is more believable? Huh? People listen. Yeah? If you're not believable, people tune you out. They're like, this guy has no idea what the heck he's talking about. Okay? My parents, my brother, my friend is not believable. They've lied. They've whatever. They don't really know what they're talking about. Their body language tells me they're really uncertain. They're hesitant. Okay? Their tone. When they talk, they're monotone. Okay? That actually affects, even if everything, all the information that's coming out is honest, is true, that affects my believability, my tone. Imagine that. Okay? If I stood up here the entire time and talked like this, you would say Abuna is really bored about what he's saying. He doesn't really believe it at all. This is dumb. Okay? Right? I mean, tone really affects. It does. Have you guys know who this person is? We're talking about power of communication. It's one of our young men. I'm going to click away from this real quick. When we're talking about power of communication, we've got Karate Kid up here. He's going to give us an idea of power of communication. It has nothing to do. I just like that picture. I'm not going to tell you who it was. You can think about it. today's message. Communication is powerful. If you're a good communicator, what can you do? What could you possibly do as a good communicator? What is some of the power that you have as a good communicator? Yes? Persuade. What else? Yes? Change. Excellent. What else can you do, Armea?
Trust and be trusted.
You can trust and you can build trust. Absolutely. You can trust others and you can build trust, you're saying. Excellent. Yes, Daniel?
Be heard.
Be heard. How many of us have felt like we're just silenced? Nobody hears us. Yeah, being heard is big. What else? Anything else? Yes? Console. Now we've got the emotional side. This is good. Can help people. Can help people, right? Become successful in many ways. Communication is a powerful thing. Common ways we communicate. Anyone? Texting. Any other way? Non-verbal. What are the non-verbal ways? Body language and writing. Gestures. That's body language. Excellent. What does my body language tell you right now?
You're uninterested.
I'm uninterested.
You're hiding something.
Hiding something. Good. I am. This is also a power stand right here. Okay? It's either or. Body language says a lot, guys. It's very important. What does my body language tell you now?
Everything.
Huh? I'm attentive. I'm leaning forward. I'm looking at you. Body language is powerful. Nonverbal is huge. Okay? Tone is big. Tone is huge. We're going to see that in a second. Spoken word, right? This is verbal. Written word, someone said. Emails, text messaging, right? And guys, this is a big one. This can be very dangerous. I want to tell you, I've had more fights with people and misunderstandings via text message than any other time in my life. Okay? Text messaging could destroy a family. And actually has. Okay? Things can be really misunderstood. I recently was having a conversation with someone over text, and it was about to start getting heated, and I said, it was getting late at night. I said, listen, it's late. Can we speak about this on the phone tomorrow? And the person replied, that's a great idea. We ended up speaking on the phone the next day. And it was so interesting how a big misunderstanding was about to happen. Why? Why is that the case? Why is that the case? Whether it's by email or text message or Facebook. Why is that such a big deal? Yes, it's so many misunderstandings.
Well, when you hear someone say something, you're listening to the tone of voice. It could be a question, a statement, a comment, like a joke. Whereas if you're sending it on the text message, you're kind of imagining what the other person is saying. So you can imagine it out of context of what the actual text.
Think about the word wow. Wow! Like you idiots. Wow! That's exciting. Oh, wow. That's crazy. It's a 3-letter word. There's 2 different letters in it. That's it. And it can be really misunderstood based on body language. Body language and tone clarifies a lot. Absolutely. Because what happens, Daniel's on point, is what happens if I say the word and you read it, how do you interpret it? Through your own mood. If you've had a horrible day, then what happens is you just got in a big fight with your boss. And someone sends you a message saying, what's up? And you're like, why is this person being so nosy right now? It's like, what? Why is this person being, it's like, what's up? Like, well, what did you hear? Like, you will interpret it based on the mood, the feeling of what's happening at that moment. That's why I always tell people written word should be used in appropriate times. Written word is important if you're communicating facts. Okay? I have a kind of a general rule of thumb that I try to live by when it comes to texting. Text me if you want to meet up and tell me the time and where we're going to meet. Don't try to have a conversation with me over text. Ain't going to happen. Some dude sent me a text message yesterday, 8:30 in the morning, and said, "Good morning, Abuna, how are you?" I'm like, what do you mean, oh, how are you? This my wife does that, but he's not my wife, Like, we're not having a conversation back and forth. What do you think about the steel? I don't care. Did you hear about what happened in Egypt? This isn't the top. Text messaging, communicating facts. Can you believe he did this? Can you believe this happened?
It's not happening.
Messaging, written word, if you want to avoid problems, if you want to avoid misunderstandings, try to use this. I know that's not always possible, but especially when you find yourself going down a path that's leading towards a misunderstanding or a fight, I would say come to a place where you say, let's talk about this in person or over the phone tomorrow, or if we can call each other now, let's clear this up. Okay? Because I'm telling you, the vast majority of what happens here is misunderstanding. Not because someone has said something wrong, but because it has been misunderstood and perceived wrong by the receiver. Okay? Body language, we said, is huge. Body language says a lot to you. When I was taking sales and marketing training, one of the things that they told us is that since you are the presentation, body language is everything. Okay? So when we would speak and we would say there are two things that I want to speak to you about, they got us to the point where we would not go for 1 minute without using our body language to express something to the people. Okay? And body language that is nervous body language is not effective. This is not like effective body language, okay? This is just like, I'm nervous, oh my goodness, I have all this energy and I don't know what to do. Okay? Walking around like this and like, this is not like body language. This is like, this body language says, I'm nervous. Okay? Jumping up and down, that's just nervous energy. That's actually not an intelligent thing to do. All right? If you're speaking in front of people, or if you're trying to communicate things. But body language can be very, very powerful if you're trying to express an idea and you want people to get it. This is powerful. And we don't use this enough. Okay? We use a lot of nervous body language in our culture. A lot of hand flailing, all right? Things like that. Visual images are key. Think about this slide versus this. Much more powerful, right? Tone. You remember images. We all remember images. Tone, spoken word, written word, body language, thinking visually. I had an eye up there, but I took it off. Okay? And the last one is what? Silence. Images are powerful. And silence is an important part of communicating. Let me come back to this one for a second. My first sales job, presentation, I was actually very effective. One is because I think I was a very effective communicator. But two is the presentation that I used had no more than 4 words on a slide. This would have been butchered by my sales manager. Okay? Because images really are worth 1,000 words. If you're giving a presentation in your work, in your school, more images, less words. PowerPoint provides that option for you. Okay? Some of the most boring presentations I've ever seen is a slide that is covered with words. Now, if you need to quote something verbatim, then that makes sense. But if you're giving a presentation, guys, I'm talking on communication on many different levels. Okay? Let's say you want to go on a vacation. Moore actually just called me the other day and she said, Abuna, I really want to get away for a few days. I want to go down to either to the DR or somewhere like a beach town, you know, down in the mid-Atlantic. So I was like, oh, okay, that sounds good. And then she sent me the link, and I saw the pictures, and I got excited. Visual images are huge. Marketers make their day on it. And if you really want to get an idea that you're having a difficult time getting it through to someone, and an image can help you, family, friend, that's very powerful, okay? And silence, think about music for a second. I'm not talking about the music that comes on the radio today. I'm talking about real music, like real arts, like like the Mozarts and the Beethovens and these guys. Silence. Has anyone here been in a band before? Played a musical instrument? Silence is so important. The pauses, the breaks. Because what happens if everyone is supposed to pause for a moment and they don't, then it sounds messed up. You mess up the whole song. You know, when we're singing in church, and there is always that one guy that goes over, right? Silence is important. And specifically, if we want to talk about our communication with God, 1 Kings chapter 19, verse 11, speaks about how God was coming to Elijah. He's in the cave. He says, go out onto the edge of the cave, okay? Outside of the cave. And he says, you're going to be standing out there and I'm going to come. And there's going to be a wind that comes by, but I'm not going to be in the wind, right? And then fire comes. And what's the third one?
An earthquake.
An earthquake, thank you. And then the last one says a still small voice. And the Hebrew actually says a still silent voice. But it doesn't make sense to say silence. But silence is important. If we are having a difficult time, especially in our day, to find ourselves being able to communicate with God, it's because we're not allowing ourselves to be silent. Silence is huge. If we're talking and I ask you a question and then I don't shut up for you to respond, I just keep talking. For there to be healthy communication, there needs to be moments of silence. And you know, a lot of us are really uncomfortable with silence. Ever been in a car with someone and it's silent for like 3 seconds? What's the first thing you do? Turn on the radio. Absolutely. We hate silence. It's uncomfortable. Silence is powerful. And it's a very important part of communication. Okay? I want us to look at elements of face-to-face. We've got a few more. I'm going to hold questions till the end if we have time, okay? Elements of face-to-face communication. We've got verbal, vocal, and visual. Okay? Verbal is what's spoken. Vocal is the tone. Visual is body language. What are the percentages? Any guesses? Any guesses? Huh? Any guesses on verbal? How much the words are actually valued out of 100%?
10%.
10%. Any other guesses? What do you think, John?
60.
60%. The words are 60%. Okay. What about vocal? Yes.
I have a question.
Yep.
Are you talking about between between vocal and verbal? Communicating?
Vocal is tone, verbal is the actual words, verbiage, words. So we've got 10%, we've got 60%. What about vocal? How much is the tone important? Ma'ar, don't answer because I know you probably just read something on this. You're constantly reading. It's not fair. Yes. Huh? 50%. Anyone else, the tone?
90%.
90%. What about visual?
80%.
80% visual.
That's 200%.
200. Yeah,
Based on the
200%.
calculation.
All right, let's look at the results.
I would say 10.
7%, the actual words. Vocal, the tone is 38%, and what you see, the body language, the images, 55%. That tells you 93% of what is communicated in a face-to-face conversation, 93% is not in the words. Okay? That's why it's important to recognize your tone and how it's affecting people. When you're yelling and you're shouting, people say, calm down, and you say, I am calm! Right? Well, that's not what's being communicated. Or if I tell you, you know, you're slouched over and your eyes are closed, and I'm like, hey, dude, pay attention. You're like, I am. Okay. These two are huge. And the biggest one is visual. Your body says a lot. When you are sitting, those of you who are sitting up and leaning forward or looking at me, tells me you are listening. You are paying attention at least. You're hearing what I'm saying. Okay? It's huge. This is huge. We don't realize how important. We focus all of our attention on this. That's why, I'll be honest, I quit writing out all of my sermons word by word. I have concepts that I want to communicate. Okay? There are certain words that are important, texts of scripture that I don't want to mess up, quotes from a certain famous person, those I will read. But these are very important in communicating. The tone and the body language and what you see, the images. Okay? If you're having to do a presentation, you don't have PowerPoint, bring in a prop. Show and tell is great for that reason. That was why it was everyone's favorite day in school. Show and tell. You have something there that you get to show and speak about. It's a very powerful idea. That was kind of like the pre-PowerPoint. All right? There's different kinds of communication. There's downwards. We're going to move a little bit quicker. Downwards communication. This is kind of like I'm a supervisor. It's not that I'm talking down to you, but it's the direction of the conversation, okay? You've got a coach speaking to his player, okay? He's giving orders, okay? He's saying, this is what I expect from you. I, as a supervisor, am asking this of you. If you come to me and Abuna, what should I do? I'm going to say, these are the things you need to do. Basically, this person is at the submission of this person. There's a lot of downward communication that happens between parents and their children. Okay? It's not like a request, can you please clean your room? Okay? Clean your room. Okay, that's the direction. Okay? It's my house. I brought you into this world. You need to clean your room, or I'm going to take you out of this world. Okay? And it's not a bad thing. It's a reality of life. Both of these types of communication, downward and upward, are going to be present in our lives. Okay? Upward communication, which is interesting, is the way that I believe Jesus dealt with humanity. And he actually told his disciples, you're not going to be like the Gentiles, who lord their authority over them, but you wash their feet. And that's exactly what Christ did. He came down in order to lift us up. He elevated us. He's like taking them back to, they need to share this divine life. Okay? It was an upward communication. He was lifting us up. Okay? Upward communication, I go to my wife and I'm like, honey, can I please do this? You know, I really want to get a motorcycle. Are you okay with it? You know, please. This is a request. This is my kids come to me and say, Baba, can I have a cheese stick, please? Okay? If they demand, we tell them, I'm sorry, we don't hear what you're saying. And then they rephrase and say, may I please have a cheese stick? And we're like, no, not right now. This is hierarchy level, okay? Upwards and downwards is happening, okay? You've got Christ on the top, then Samir, this is the young adult ministry, then Ma'ar. Mina Armenius is taking care of this, okay? He has to deal with Ma'ar, then Amin Nabil comes down and he makes sure things are clean, and there's me down on the bottom, okay? This is the hierarchy in the truth. This is how it works, okay? CEO right here, or president, CEO, right? Executive director, Mahar, technology director, maintenance, and just, you know, president. All right? Response. I don't even know if they're going to open it. The barrier there is not everyone opens Woo.
It's good life.
You are double fired. Right. Are we almost there? We're going to need the speakers again in a couple minutes, all right? So, communication, guys, is not always just I say something, you hear it, and there's understanding, we've communicated. There are barriers that we need to also be ready to deal with, but we're not going to actually get deep into those right now. Oh, awesome. We need this because oh, that's not it, okay? So, we said, all right, excellent, excellent. We're almost there, yep. Awesome, okay. So we've got, I sent something to me and I shot him a look. He received it, kind of decoded it, kind of, not really. The medium was body language. He gave feedback, but there were barriers both ways, okay? Some of the barriers to communication, some of the things that doesn't really allow the message to get through. Remember, visual images here. This is big, right? You'll remember this. There are barriers to communication now, right? Some of those barriers, noise. Noise. If there's dawsha and I'm trying to say something to y'all and there's noise, let me tell you something. Sunday, we're celebrating Abuna Antonius' 25-year anniversary, right? In the basement of the church on 60th. You know, the biggest barrier to people hearing the message is noise. Everyone is sitting there talking, chattering. It drives me crazy. I want to kill people when this happens. Really. Noise is a big barrier to communication. I'm up there trying to say something nice about Abuna Antonius. Or there's a group of little kids up there singing a song, say, Abuna, we love you, you're our dad, and this and that. And everyone's sitting there chatting. And Abuna's sitting there, he can't even hear anything. Noise, big barrier. Secondly, it's inappropriate medium. Remember, if you have something serious that needs to be communicated, text message is not the best. If it's at work environment, I would say do not send an email with the whole thing. I would use email to schedule a time to communicate that, okay? Unless if you want to send it out and say, and I'd like us to meet to discuss what I've written about, okay? So sometimes it's easier to send out the message as the first round and say, but that can't be the end of it. For it to really be fully grasped, we need to sit down and talk about what I've sent you. Okay? So that there's a full understanding of what we're trying to communicate. It's been received, understood. Assumptions. I might assume you know what I'm talking about.
This is the worst thing.
Okay? If I told you I want to talk to you next week about the theological disposition, about the soteriological, incarnational work of Christ Eucharistically in our lives, you guys, I just kind of went on and said, and that's what we're going to talk about next. That would be an assumption that 90% of you have no idea what I'm talking about. Now, I could be wrong, okay? And 95% of you don't know what I'm talking about, okay? But assumptions are a big barrier to communication. We shouldn't just assume the other person knows what we're talking about, okay? Misconceptions as well. Emotions oftentimes prevent us from understanding. Mina's really angry today, Mina Gabriel. And I've said something to Mina, and he can't hear because he's really mad. You know, he's really mad. He really wanted LeBron to lose, and he didn't. So now he's just having a bad day. Okay. Language differences. Oh my goodness! I was sitting with a couple one time, and I said something to the woman, just about how her and her husband, you know, they need to whatever be closer to each other, and the woman started blushing. مش مصدقة وداني ازاي تقول كده يا ابويا ازاي. Language differences, huge. I was just trying to tell her, you guys should go out on a date or something, you know? And I guess that's some illiterative, all right? So language differences, huge. Poor listening skills. Distractions, people walking by, people walking in and out. Distractions are huge. Text messages. You ever been sitting with someone at dinner and they're constantly on their phone texting? It's annoying. Don't be that person, all right? We're going to skip that. First step in selling is doing what? I walk into someone, this is the other reason I was a good salesperson. I would walk into an office and I would say, hey, have you heard about my technology? And they would say, no, tell me about it. What was the first thing that I did?
You provoked his mind.
No. What's the next step I should say that I do? No.
First thing you listen to.
I ask him a question. tell me about your research. He just said, tell me about your technology. First thing I want to do as a salesman is understand his need first. Maybe he doesn't need my technology. I mean, everyone needed the technology, of course. Okay.
But you provoke this.
Do you understand my point, though? I say, I'm from this company. He says, tell me about what you have. And I say, what do you do? I want to understand where he's at first. Okay? Communication, it's very important that we understand. Bible says everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak. 2 ears, 1 mouth. We've heard that before. Okay, Proverbs 18, again, a fool has no delight in understanding, but in expressing his own heart. You know, we all know people, their favorite subject to talk about is me. Everyone's favorite subject is me. They only like to talk about themselves. And they're like, okay, I've been talking enough about myself. Why don't you talk? Why don't you tell me what you think about me? Okay? We don't have interest in understanding. Oftentimes we're fooled. Difference between hearing versus listening. What is it? Big difference. What's the, yes?
Well, I can hear what you're saying, but it's not really registering. Whereas when you listen, you're paying attention to everything that's happening or that's being spoken so you can understand what's happening.
Excellent. Everyone here, or almost everyone here, is hearing what's being said. But not all of us are involved in active listening. And guys, this happens in our conversations. You're sitting with someone, they are pouring themselves out. You hear the words, but you're not really there. And then they say to you, you know what I mean? And what do you say to them back? Yep, you're like, yeah. And they're like, well, what should I do? And then you're like, well, no, it would help me if you said that last part again. Hearing is a physical process, natural, it's passive. Listening is physical as well as mental. There's an active thing. You are focused. You want to absorb what's being said. All right? We're going to skip through. We said listening, it's an art. It reflects courtesy. This is important. Proves competence. You want to go places in life? You want to have healthy relationships? You want to be an effective person? Practice active listening. You know, people come to Abuna Antonios from all over the tri-state area because he is probably one of the best listeners we've ever met. He asks questions and he listens. He's a great listener. And people walk out saying, Abuna, thank you so much. And he'll tell me afterwards, he's like, I feel guilty. Everyone's thanking me. And I'm listening. You know? Listening is so underrated, it's so underappreciated. Obviously, there needs to be feedback at times. But active listening is very important. We're going to skip through. Just because of time. Okay, let's come to this last couple of slides. How to improve existing level of communication. Number 1 is avoid reading or watching. Basically, avoid filling your mind with garbage. Because what happens is when your mind is full of garbage, gossip and other just unwanted literature, that kind of stuff, what happens is your mind is constantly distracted. Okay? Secondly is interact with quality people. Surround yourself with good, high-quality people. Thirdly, improve on your own area of topic of discussion, okay? If you are interested in sharing and talking about relationships, read books. Pick up a book, read it. If you want to become the expert in financial stewardship, pick up books and improve in that area. And obviously, last one is we need to practice, and this is, guys, this I didn't just throw this up there as a, yeah, let's just put that up. Practicing deep prayer, meditating in good thoughts, that's very important because when you have inner peace, and Christ said it in a different way, he says, out of the abundance of the heart, what happens? Mouth speaks. What's on the inside comes out. And so when we are practicing deep prayer, like that inner rule of prayer, inner rule of life, inner man or person, that affects our communication, our ability to. just quickly here, cultural considerations, understand your audience. I was standing one time in a group in front of 2 bishops and about 50 priests, and I was standing there talking with the bishops like this, all right? What do you see that I'm doing wrong? I put my hand in my pocket. I didn't see what the problem was. I was just chit-chatting, you know? Satan asked me to come up, so I went up, and you know, they asked, when do you experience this? So he's like, tell us about it. Tell me, this in front of like 50, 60 clergy. Okay? And so I'm like sitting there sharing with them and, you know, just communicating. And afterwards, one of the priests came up to me and said, Abuna, what did you do? I was like, what did I do? He's like, how could you? Don't you know when you do this, it's like you're talking down to a child from the streets. I was like, and I went up saying that, both saying this, like, I'm so sorry. And they both started laughing. Thank God they had a good humor. Otherwise, I would not be here today. I would be somewhere in Budapest, probably. Keep appropriate distance, guys. There's nothing worse than a close talker. There's a woman in this church. Stand up real quick. Every time I see her, I literally put my hand out like this to her. It doesn't work, and she still comes this, and I'm like, and I'll step back, and I'm like, and somehow she maneuvers herself. Keep appropriate distance. This is important. That means, like when we go to Egypt, for instance, we hug each other like we're gonna die tomorrow. Okay? When you go to Egypt, you just don't. Guy doesn't walk up to one of the girls and, hey, what's up, girl? You're gonna get jumped. Appropriate distance is very important, especially consider culturally how it's understood. Touch only when appropriate. Take care of your appearance. Eye contact. It's not disrespectful. Actually, in Asian countries, looking down is a very respectful thing to do. And the Saida, they don't make eye contact with authority. Okay? They don't. I actually was sitting with someone one time and I said, Bosiri Habibi, look at me. And he goes, Hadir. And then I kind of learned, I became a Saidi later. Smiling at appropriate times, okay? Okay, just girls be careful, you guys be careful if you smile at someone means different things in different cultures. I'll just leave it at that. Avoid jargon or slang. I was talking with my mom one time and I was like, yo mom, she said something like, that's crazy. And she goes, eh? I'm not crazy. All right. Cutting people off. We love this. We have 14 people in the same room and we have 25 conversations going on. We cut each other off and we talk over each other. Consider that doesn't fly here in the West. All right? Don't talk just to fill the silence. All right. We now are going to close with a 2-minute video, and then if there's time, we'll take one question, if there are any. Maybe there's not. All right? The Prince of Communication. Keep yourselves. Is this on? Oh my goodness, I will kill you. All right, are you ready?
Where we've been through.
Fooled
We've
you.
been through. My dad, like many of your folk who got relatives here, many of you whose relatives did the same thing, you're here, their relatives probably aren't. And it is that there be a staple Iran. Iran that is capable of rejecting Iranian influence. I mean, Iraq. Our people have done a really good job of hauling in a lot of the key operators. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, Abu Zubaydah, Ramzi al-Shib, or whatever the guy's name was. Thanks for coming. Thanks for coming. Welcome to the White House. Thanks for coming. It feels good. If you got a problem, blame somebody else. You may recall we went to a park in Botswana, Panama City, Panama. What you probably want to know is the 3 words I'm not going to tell you.
Samozřejmě byste asi nechtěli slyšet.
I'm not going to tell you. That's 5 words. You'll be able to see a technology, a technology that will enable you to converse with somebody on long distance, and it seems like the person's right there in the room with you. Yeah, I think tide turning. As I remember, I was raised in the desert, but tides kind of turn. It's easy to see a tide turn. Did I say those words? Let me. You'll be. The left hand now knows what the right hand is doing. In major cities. This capital. I've been planning to protect small business owners, local officials, the high
He spits right here, guys. At the very end, he shoots a loogie. Like, can you imagine if people saw that in Europe or the Middle East? The president of the free world is walking down the White House lawn and spits out. This guy is the prince of miscommunication. Okay, he's quite possibly the worst communicator, and possibly president we've ever had. All right, we'll stop at that. If there are any questions, we might have time for one question. All right, are there any questions? Yes, Borja.
What if you're born in Egypt and you have like 2 languages, you're speaking Arabic and in English, and you read both in Arabic and in English? How are you going to improve your language skills if sometimes, let's say you think in Arabic and then you think in English? It's weird. Like sometimes كمان تخش في أسباني كمان.
Yeah, I think one of the slides that I had to skip through was talking about being purposeful, like thinking through what you're going to say before you're going to say it. Okay. So a lot of times someone asks us a question and we just jump to an answer, right? And especially for those of us who are stronger in one language than the other, which all of us are on some level. It's not a perfect match. I think what we need to be able to do is stop, if you will, for a second, ask for a moment to kind of gather your thoughts and then respond. As much as is possible. Obviously, it's not always the case. The reason I grabbed this paper is I was asked to make some calls to DC earlier today and yesterday based on what's happening in Egypt. State Department, Capitol Hill. And I'm not an expert when it comes to Egyptian politics at all. Okay? So I had to make some phone calls and I had to gather my thoughts and almost have a script of what I was going to say. Now that helped me a lot because I was on the phone, right? So again, it depends on the audience, how much prep time you have. Okay. Knowing what your strength is, if you have a preference, and then also knowing, if you have an option to use your language of preference. And then clearly the last part, which is very important, I said earlier, is reading more in order to develop a more fluid language around the topic. So before I made those phone calls, I read about 5 or 6 articles. I asked people send me YouTube videos. I kind of did some very preliminary basic research so that I could be more readily equipped to have those conversations and not sound like a complete idiot when I spoke. Okay. Does that somewhat answer your question? Okay. We can maybe talk about it more offline if I didn't directly answer every aspect of it.